Hello, thank you for joining me once again on Shingeki Day. Right then, so first of all, before I go any further, again, a reminder that this is a different type of presentation. It's a temporary thing. I certainly don't want this to be the new norm. Though, I'm certainly thinking about incorporating frames from the anime in future discussions, mix those up. So yeah, just another reminder, that's the reason you're going to see just frames from the episode for the post-episode discussion. It's just a precaution, and it's a temporary one. If you do end up enjoying this, please consider dropping a like, drop some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in full length for this episode, or perhaps even early access to the next episode right now, consider checking out the Patreon page and check out the different listings there. Please remember, it's just an option for anyone who's interested in content beyond the scheduled content. And yeah, perhaps check out the plans for 2021 and the stuff that might be lined up. And the links for the Patreon page are in the pinned comment and the description. Right then, that's about it. Let's get right into the episode. Thank you once again for joining me, and thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy. Whoa, Armin. Again. Oh, that's Hitch, isn't it?
巨人の記憶というのは接触がきっかけになることが多くあって僕が悪かったから入場禁止だけはどうか
She's like a custodian? She looks great. The Sleeping Beauty. Who's gonna get her out of that shell? Look at that. It's out there in the open now. That's out there in the open as well. Look at that. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The New Eldian Empire, it's out there now, that term. I guess leaking that info did the trick, huh? Hitch. Gotta love Hitch. She looks great. Oh, are they gonna sneak down there? Oh, shenanigans. His reaction.
また偉くしようらしいの。
私は思っていた。あなた方は世界を知らない。このまま議論を先送りにし続けていけば手遅れになると。危機感を覚えていたのはエレンも同じでした。
So that's not a new look then.
そんなことは言ってません。ただ、平成権に葉っぱをかける必要があるとは話しました。
それだけかの？危険を冒してまで密会するからには。
Right. Surely they must have discussed other stuff. I somehow doubt that. I don't know. That look in her face. OG. Eren's founding titan. He was quite effective.
彼はたった一人で我々を長年苦しめてきたマーレに天罰を下したのです。それほどの器の持ち主である彼が始祖を宿しているという事実。
Founding Titan, the founder, the terminology she's using here.
今我々が目にしているものが何かお分かりですか？我々は歴史が変わる瞬間に立ち会っているのです。二人の兄弟によって世界は生まれ変わります。私はそれを彼らの近くで見ていたいだけなのです。私が密会したことを誰も知りません。
This is new music, right?
私の軽率な行為。あなた方を欺いたのは事実ですが、私の行動はすべてヘルディアを思ってのことです。
わしもそう信じたい。エレンと交わした会話のすべてをお聞かせ願おう。うまい嘘のつき方を知っとるか。時折 事実を混ぜて喋ることじゃ。
Ah, I like that. I like that. As expected of Pixis, Commander Pixis.
この後に及んで我々を疑うなんて正直失望しまし
Oh,
た
I
よ。
like that detail.
俺たちは仲間でしょ。この3年間共に汗を
Yeah,
流して
Helos, right?
皆でエルディアの未来を誓い合ったのになんですか。
She looked like the Titan from Ilse's notebook
イ
almost.
エナがエレンと密会したことを認めた。知りませんでしたよ。本当に。
本当に知らなかったと見える。
Yeah, I believe him. I
私
believe
には
him.
ね
I mean, Yelena said as much. She didn't tell
イ
anyone
エレナ
else.
がそんなことするわけないとは言わないんだね。彼女ならやりかねないと思っているから。
そんなことは寝食を共にした友であってもこちらを疑ったマーレ人は全て自己死として葬った。
Yeah, she's ice cold, isn't she?
俺たちもそれがマーレに奪われた祖国のためだと信じることで乗り切ったんです。
彼女は平成権に反発してまでマーレ兵の人権を譲らなかった。そこまでマーレ人に容赦のなかったイエレナが。
Oh my god. Ooh, great shot. Great
アジ
transition.
は相変わらず飛び回っているらしいな。君たちとエレンを面会させることはで
Asking
きない。
permission, of course.
どうしてでしょうか。
But they just got
キ
declined.
ー兵とエレンの接触が明らかになったからだ。エレンは今回の発覚を受けている。
Ooh, so that's recent. She's got the
彼は単
notebook.
独で過ごしたマーレでの時間についても依然として空白のまま。おそらくエレンはジークに操られていると
It's the second time they've said that. Pixis said it too.
他なら君たちだから話したが、くれぐれも内密に。
No, I don't think Aaron's being manipulated. So is that?
そんな。それは。
Yeah, I had the same question, Mikasa.
置き場に困ったものを先ほど新兵に運ばせたのだ。
Oh, the recruits they saw earlier.
エレンが黙秘するのでしたら、なおのこと僕たち2人がお役に立つのではないでしょうか。確実にエレンから真意を聞き出せるとは申しませんが。
Come on, let him just have
そうは
it.
ないはずです。
Let him try.
事態はより慎重を期す。
I was really hoping for that, man.
考えられるとしたら、平成権はすでにエレンを見限っているのかもしれない。
That's likely. That is a likely possibility, Armin. A sneaky look.
もしそうだとしたら、始祖の継承者選びも始まっている。あの部屋の会話を聞いてくれ。
Look at that. Is he looking at like applications or candidates?
バレないようにできる。今兵器違反を犯しちゃまずいよ。何があっても私はエレンを。
Oh my god, was it? It was those recruits, wasn't it? Oh. Oh my god, it's gone there. They just assassinated the premier.
相当は
Yeah, he just flew out Mikasa. Like half of him at least.
俺たちの怒りが届いたんだ。今こそ戦う時だ。俺も戦うぞ。俺も。そうだ。新生エルディア帝国兵士の心臓を捧げよう。心臓を捧げよう。
Wow.
心臓を捧げよう。
しかし僕とミカサは
Yeah.
相当の部屋を
They
訪れ
focused on
る
those
前に
recruits.
本部から立ち去る新兵を見ました。調査兵団です。
調査兵団といえば
The music
エレンの
again.
情報を外に漏らして懲罰を受けた者どもがいると聞いた。
Oh no.
まさか
緊急事態です。エレン・イェーガーが地下牢から脱走しました。
He did it.
総動員して捜索
He walked out, didn't he?
了解。
一体何が起こっているの。
Whoa. I have goosebumps head to toe. Luis? Oh my god. This is iconic.
多いな。
Oh my god, this is Eren, man. I have flashbacks of that young Eren in my mind right now.
エレン・イェーガー。
Whoa, look at her. She's like state of shock. I don't know, Armin. Alright, the New Eldian Empire. That term is out there. Oh man, this is like Season 1 memories. Oh, this is sad, man.
しかし今私が兵団を退くことより無責任なことはない。
そうだ。俺の目の前にいるかもしれない。今お前らが自爆しても不思議じゃない。
ローグ、バカなことを言うな。
Isn't that the guy who was all drunk the other day?
ハンジ、ジークの交流場所を知る者は
現地で監視に当たるリヴァイと30名の兵士、そして補給と連絡を受け持つ3名。あとは私だけです。
ならばその3名をここへ。ナイル、ジョーの住処は安全か。
限られたものしか知りませんが。
これはもうわしらの負けじゃ。エレンに降参しよう。仮に徹底して敵をあぶり出すにしても、どれだけの血が流れることか。そんな愚行に費やす時間はどこにもない。多くの兵に兵団を見限る決断をさせた。我々の敗因はこれに尽きる。革命に生き革命に敗れるような奴も本望じゃろう。
Died by his own creation.
それではイエーガー兄弟に服従するおつもりですか？
服従ではない。イエーガー派にジークの居場所を教えることを条件に交渉を図る。それでは確認。
It is the guy who was drunk the other day. And he's drinking something real special, right?
ミカサ様。
ミカサ様。
何かありましたらすぐに私どもの船までお逃げください。
It's quite the offer, but
様のお心遣い感謝いたします。
I'm an Eldian.
しかしながら私はエルディア人ですので。
何をおっしゃいますか？私どもがここに来たのはあなた様のために。
地下資源がなくても。
Yeah.
ただ、ミカサ様の母君が残された一族の誇りまで失ったわけではございません。この国がどうなろうと、あなた様だけはお守りいたします。
Okay, put a pin in that.
まさか相当を殺したエレンに協力するなんてな。
No, 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 hold on now,
エレンが
Connie.
やったと決まったわけじゃない。
実際どうなんだよ、ミカサ。
ほう。
私とアルミンはあの爆発に巻き込まれるところだったと言った。これでもわからないの。
やめるんだ。
It's at that point now, man.
兵団内での争いは自滅でしか。
Infighting.
エレンとジークに委ねることに
Oh, it's that music again.
いや、それは良くない。この状況を踏まえた上で、ジークやイエレナによって仕掛けられた保険が効果を発揮してきている。そして保険は他にもまだあると。
Yeah, they did. They did.
私たちはこれ以上無様に翻弄される前に、ジークの思惑を明らかにしよう。
Scared the shit out of me, episode 10.
早とちりならそれでいいんだけど、彼女が守ったマーレ人捕虜の労働環境があるし、例えばレストランとか。
Niccolo.
すごい建物。こんなとこ初めてだ。俺も。
よかったな。
I swear, if anything happens to Sasha's dad.
食うときなさいよ。
Who's this? Peach-chan! Oh. Oh. Wow. That ending was brilliant. Peach-chan is here and she's infiltrated. It's come full circle once again. Wow. Much to talk about. Much to discuss. Right then, now that was such a high-octane ending, wasn't it? I mean, it was so high stakes, right? It was exhilarating and goosebump-inducing in its delivery. So many things are set up in these final moments. You know, that certainly felt like a major moment of the season being set up, right there at the end. But, you know, before I go any further, how about Yamamoto's music? I mean, it continues to give this season its unique identity, right? How incredible was the score during the final scene? You know, now I've heard that music before, that score before. Now, you know, my first thought was that maybe it's a new arrangement of that track they used at the end of episode 6, right? As the Devils of Paradis, come in on Galliard, the Jaw Titan. And then, of course, they used it again as the Beast Titan showed up in episode 7. But, it might actually just be the first part of that song, and now I actually get to hear the beginning of that song. So it actually might not be a new arrangement. It might just be the complete track. I just didn't get to hear the full track or the beginning of that track until now. And it was beautiful. It was just beautiful. It has such a grand feeling to it, doesn't it? The right musical choices can make or break scenes, right? And of course, that applies to all kinds of mediums, right? Films, games, anime, shows. It can turn a scene into an iconic one. One that resonates and lingers in audiences' minds, right? Long after first experiencing it, right? And, I feel that Shingeki's cultural legacy, as a cultural phenomenon, does include and has been enabled by the iconic, the memorable, the richly textured score, right? Through the efforts of the incredible Sawano, right? Who set the bar so high already, right? And then now you have Yamamoto coming in its final season, right? And that's a tall order, right? That is a tall order to come in to a series of this caliber in its final season, right? And maintaining that standard that Sawano has established over the last few years now, and delivering some absolutely stunning music. There's some iconic music in this season, right? There's some, that's the thing I was saying. He's presented this season with its own unique identity, right? Through some of these iconic tracks they've used in these iconic moments, right? They're intertwined. Iconic moments and iconic music, right? It's possible because of the iconic music. One of the things, of course, right now, it's the world is a different place at the moment, the pandemic. But, hopefully down the line, once, there going to be a back to normal, right? It's going to be the new normal, right, from this point on. But, maybe once things start getting better, and essentially, the world opens up again, right? It is open, but in the sense that, international travel becomes more common again. It's a bit hard to imagine at the moment, given how things are in the world at the moment. But imagine a concert that could have Yamamoto's new music, maybe Sawano comes in as well. And then, unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the singer who performs the ending to season 4, but imagine a live performance of that. Oh, that'd be just incredible, right? All right, I'll stop dreaming for now, and let's get back to this, right? So let's circle back to the final scene. You see Sasha's father and the extended family show up, right? Including a tense Falco and Gabby, right? Now, of course, this is Sasha's father taking up Chef Nicolo's offer at the cemetery, right? At Sasha's grave. And Chef Nicolo is the Marlene Kaya told Falco and Gabby about. So it's happening, right? It's happening. They are going to meet Nicolo. But more specifically, Gabby is going to meet Chef Nicolo. Now, at this point in time, I would be absolutely shocked if Gabby killing Sasha doesn't come out at some point, or if it doesn't come out here, right? Given how they've established this final scene, right? Surely Gabby is going to try to confide in this Marlene, right? And surely she'll be relieved to see a Marlene soldier. And that in itself is such a fascinating thing, isn't it? Because this is going to be someone from home, right? In that sense, from her home. After being out here on the island of devils, I'm doing air quotes as I say that, and having to be among these devil Eldians, right? A Marlene soldier is going to be quite the welcome sight for her, right? But little does she know, right? Little does she know, this Marlene had a life-altering moment here on Paradis, right? And he connected with an Eldian, right? And that Eldian happens to be the one Gabby killed, right? Whoa, so there's an explosive possibility here. That's for sure. That's for damn sure. Because at this point, you know, even beyond Gabby, at this point, Sasha's father doesn't know either, right? Now, that's not really a concern of mine, you know. They've established Sasha's father's disposition, right, a long time ago. I think I already, you know, mentioned that I don't think for a second he would react in a manner that would be concerning if he was to find out, right? He's not the problem here. But, you know, the other two, and the other one being Kaya, you know, Kaya doesn't know either, right? And they show us in the last episode just how much Sasha meant to Kaya. So yeah, there's an explosive possibility here, right? So many different angles to this. And then on top of that, you have Hanji and the Levi squad members heading to that restaurant as well, right? Because she correctly surmised, right, as expected of Hanji-san, you know, she correctly surmised that certain precautions or contingency plans might have been put into place by Zeke and Yelena, or, you know, Zeke's plans might have been put into place by his followers, right? And Yelena seems to be the one who might be putting these things into motion, and I'll get into that, right, in much more detail in my segment for Yelena, because there's certainly, wow, a lot to cover. So if that situation wasn't already a potential explosive situation, you also have Hanji and squad heading there, right? And who does it pan to as they storm by on their horses? Pieck-chan. I mean, who's clearly trying to blend in, right? She's incognito. She's infiltrated, clearly. So in that sense, it's come full circle. You know, once again, you have Marlene warriors infiltrating. Or at least one of them, right? For sure. But I mean, surely the rest as well. Or about to get there, you know. If they're not there yet, they're surely about to get there soon enough. You know, given the nature of that post-credit scene they showed us, right? You know, Reiner really imploring the commander to, you know, put a surprise attack into motion as soon as possible, to catch them off guard, to catch Zeke off guard. So, you know, she's clearly watching the scouts' movements and could potentially follow them as well, right? Depends on who else is with her, right? And if it is a good plan to follow them at this point in time, you know, maybe she was sent ahead to infiltrate and take in the situation, right? But the fact that she is here now, right, means that the surprise Marley attack is imminent as well, right? So if the others are not here, and by the others I mean, you know, the commander and Reiner, Colt, Galliard, if they're not here yet, they're going to show up soon enough, you know, that's for sure. If Pieck did go ahead by herself to infiltrate, and if that wasn't enough, there's this ticking time bomb element of Zeke's potential, you know, turning a particular set of people into Titans plan, right? His Titans, that is. And if that happens, you know, if I am on the right track, and if that does go down, it's going to make an already chaotic situation, a chaotic state of things, it's going to turn that into absolute bedlam out there, right? But of course, there's still the unknown of his range, or the range of his screen that does turn people into Titans, right? His set of Titans, that is. But see, here's the thing. Another angle to this is that just like how Commander Pixis plans on using the location of Zeke as leverage, right, to negotiate with the Jaegerists, right? So I get like a name for them, this cult essentially, you know, this group of extremists, nationalists, the Jaegerists, as Niall put it. Now Zeke and his people, specifically Yelena, could have some leverage of their own, quite a bit of leverage actually, right? If indeed it does turn out to be the special Titan fluid, right, in the drinks, and now potentially in the systems of some higher ups, right? There's still that unknown, right? I brought up that really scary possibility. I'm not sure who else has been given these lace drinks, right? They only showed me that one scene, right? But they've been there for some time now, so I'm not even sure who else has had those drinks and has them in their system now, right? So that can be used as a negotiating tool as well, right? Or a tactic. So yeah, so they could have quite a strong negotiating position themselves if they, again, that's if they or Yelena does decide to reveal their plans to them at some point soon, right? And decides to tell them, oh, okay, so listen up. This is how things are at the moment, and you're essentially at Zeke's mercy, right? They could take that angle. I mean, that would be the smart thing to do, right? And Hanji has caught on to this, right? She has caught on to the fact that clearly they've taken precautions, right? They've had contingency plans. And I brought this up a few episodes ago, right? Someone like Zeke Yeager, who is a mastermind, there's no chance he was going to come to Paradis, without having precautions and contingency plans, right? He anticipated the hostility, right? He knew. An extension to him, Yelena, and then his people. Right then, so as I mentioned, Yelena and Commander Pixis, let's go there, right? Let's touch on that scene because it was quite an interesting one. It was a standout scene for sure. As Commander Pixis surmised in the last episode, I mean, he essentially spelled it out, right? It was pretty clear cut that indeed Yelena did have a secret meeting with Eren. Right? And I thought it was actually interesting to get her thought process on some of these things. Really interesting, actually. You see that she noticed some of the indecisiveness, right? Not some. There was a lot of indecisiveness. That's for sure. Arguments leading to putting things off. That was her concern. She felt that they didn't quite understand the enormity and the time-sensitive nature of the situation they find themselves in as a nation, as, Eldian. For a second I forgot, Paradis as a nation. And according to Yelena, Eren had the same stance, right? And clearly agreed with her that someone needed to light a fire under the administration, right? And get the Paradis military moving, essentially. And he certainly did that. He certainly did that in that first arc. Now, Yelena made it sound like that's all they discussed during this secret meeting. But as Commander Pixis alluded, surely she didn't risk a secret meeting and not take that chance or not take that opportunity to discuss specifics, right? It was perhaps the only chance she might have had to, actually meet with Eren in private, face to face, right? So there's got to be much more to this, much more that she might have disclosed to Eren and discussed with Eren, and perhaps even private messages from Zeke, right? Something that they haven't given us yet, but that might have been discussed in that meeting, this private meeting they had. So, in that sense, you can see, you can see why Commander Pixis isn't buying this, that there wasn't more to this, right? I mean, but also, that being said, she did say a few things that are really, that should be noted, right? As the audience and as Commander Pixis, right? In his position. And once again, I get to see that fanatical side of Yelena, right? She's almost deranged in her obsession. And, obsession can be quite the driving force, that's for damn sure. They've already established that she certainly has quite a unique and obsessive outlook about Zeke Yeager, right? She does see him as a godlike figure, right? They established that a few episodes ago, episode 9, I believe, right? As she's speaking of him, or as she's, telling them about seeing him for the first time. I mean, they've already established that she certainly has quite a unique and obsessive outlook about Zeke Yeager and the Beast Titan, right? She does see him as a godlike figure, right? Or she looks up to him as a godlike figure. And this obsessive, deranged, fanatical devotion of hers, right? She describes Eren's actions against Marley as divine retribution. How about that? right? How about that? I mean, it's clear that she sees them both as these gods on earth, right? And, you know, she's not entirely wrong, is she, in that sense? I mean, I've certainly called Eren this god on earth at this moment in time, you know, given the immense power he has within him at this point in time, right? You know, so she does see them as these entities, right, that are able to reshape the world. So that's something, isn't it? And she believes that this is a major moment in history. And she's not wrong about that either, right? It is quite an important phase in history, depending on how it plays out. And now that Eren has made the choice to leave the prison cell and put his plans into motion by potentially linking up with Zeke, right? They've certainly established in this episode that that's his plan of action, his next plan of action, you know, now that he is out there. So in that sense, things are certainly in the process now to take this historic turn or take that historic turn. And there's a chilling moment, right? There's a chilling moment as Yelena is mystified at the thought of these two brothers reshaping the world, right? She just really wants to be there on the right side of history, right? It is chilling, isn't it, that she is referring to it as reshaping rather than changing the world, right? Oh man, and they certainly possess, the capacity to reshape it. That's for sure, you know. Eren, the founding titan, or the current holder of the founding titan, and Zeke Yeager, a titan of royal blood. These two coming together certainly possess the capability or the capacity to reshape the world. And notice how she said things like, oh, they wanted Eren's founding titan to crush Marley into dust, right? Not Eren, but she specified Eren's founding titan. And then there's that, bit about his significant actions and Marley being proof, or proof enough that he does possess the founder. You know, was this a bit of that Zeke Yeager stance leaking through one of his followers, right? One of his most devoted followers, that the founding titan or the capacity or capabilities of the founding titan are the most important thing here, right? Again, that notion of all roads leading Zeke towards the founding titan, he's always been focused on that. And through Onion Capone and Hanji's conversation, I get even more insight, right, on Yelena. And, through that specific conversation, I get more insight on Yelena's ruthless side, right? But before I go any further, Onion Capone's frustrations are definitely understandable, right? He was in the dark about any of this Eren Yelena stuff, the secret meeting. But yeah, he disclosed just how devoted she really was to Zeke Yeager and the group. Taking out anyone that doubted them, right? No hesitation. She really does have this ruthless nature, doesn't she? Perhaps even, in that sense, a bit of a sociopath, right? And as I mentioned earlier, Hanji has surmised at this point and, has come to the conclusion that, yeah, of course, they took a lot of precautions, contingency plans before coming to Paradis, right? And they had things in mind before coming to Paradis. And in that sense, this episode really does kind of establish Yelena as a mastermind in her own right, for sure. She's quite impressive. She was able to convince Paradis higher-ups to, place these Marleyan captives in certain positions, right? And, of course, this is how Niccolo was able to be employed at that lavish restaurant, right? And given the things they've established about Yelena in this episode, it appears that she was the one who might have instructed Niccolo and perhaps that Grease fellow as well, right? To hand out specific bottles, right? Or serve specific drinks to those higher ups, right? And it was noticeable that Yelena's group, the ones that are in black suits, right? They were placed in specific areas as well, right? Their presence was hard to miss. I think I even brought this up, right? In one of my discussions, might have been episode 10's discussion. Though, of course, that was before Commander Pixis decided to apprehend all of them as well, right? As a precaution. But, you know, that being said, their holdings are actually quite nice. It's more so house arrest rather than, you know, being captives in a jail cell, right? Essentially to keep them within their sights and know their locations at all times. You see Onion Capone is in this nice little house, nice little cabin type setup. You see when Yelena's holdings are quite nice, even though they are on house arrest. But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, Yelena continues to be quite an interesting new addition, an interesting new presence for sure. And it is going to be interesting to see how she affects the story from this point on as well, and the type of role she might play in the end game of all of this, right? And, you know, there's still a case of that thing she said to Commander Pixis, right? At some point, or once again, both of us are going to dine at the same table, or all of us are going to dine at the same table. And she had that really deranged, fanatical look in her face again, right? They've shown us that a few times now. I don't think this was the thing she meant, you know, being interrogated outside, but yeah, there's still... It feels like there's still a lot of things that need to play out here, that are going to play out here. And, you know, before I kind of move on from this, how about the thing Commander Pixis said, right? Do you know how to tell a good lie? Sometimes you have to mix the truth into it. I thought that was just fantastic. And it can be applicable to so many different things in this series, right? And it is going to be applicable to things as this series kind of moves to its conclusion, right? And, you know, in that sense, I feel like even though Yelena is holding a lot of things back, I think she did say some things that are the truth. She did put some things out there, some of her feelings out there, right? Her true feelings out there. But of course, she's holding on to a lot. And, you know, of course, Commander Pixis doesn't buy that she's giving them everything. Right, let's get to Armin and Mikasa. I mean, quite the episode for these two, isn't it? Quite the episode. Now, I was really hopeful for a Armin, Mikasa, and Eren scene down in the dungeons, or, you know, at his jail cell. Just those three, right? Just those three and no one else around. I really wanted to see how that potential situation could have played out. I mean, I have stated before that I do think it might have ended up similar to Hanji going down there and trying to, you know, get Eren to open up. But, you know, that's just my first thought on the matter, right? But actually getting to see a potential conversation, or that particular conversation, would have been quite interesting. That's for sure, you know, and it would have been interesting to see how that would have played out. The direction it would have taken, right? Would Eren have taken that aggressive approach in his replies, right? Or in his responses? I mean, that's assuming he would even actually open up at all to them, right? To begin with. I mean, it totally could have been the opposite as well, right? Keep everything close to his chest, right? Keep his cards close to his chest, have his guard up, perhaps something like a need-to-know basis type approach, and potentially even protecting them, right? Or thinks he's protecting them by not sharing his thought process and plans of action, right? You know, possibly the notion of protecting them from the choices he might be making really soon, you know, now that he has left his jail cell, right? So in that sense, it could even be something like you know, him potentially distancing himself from attachments, or distancing himself for their sake, right? Push them away to protect them. You see this type of approach or narrative choice from time to time. You know, I've seen it in a few different things, few different mediums. You know, one example that comes to mind, and might not be the biggest spoiler at this moment in time, it reminds me a bit of Harry Potter. You know, in the Order of the Phoenix, Harry becomes quite frustrated, right, with Dumbledore. You know, Harry didn't quite understand why Dumbledore was being so standoffish, right, and avoiding him, ignoring him. You know, ultimately, he was distancing himself to protect Harry, right? And there's other examples of this type of approach, but I don't really want to, spoil anything. But yeah, I feel like this type of thing could be at play as well. But yeah, I think it is possible that there could be this type of approach by Eren, right? Another angle could be that he believes that it's kind of impossible for anyone else to understand the things he's experiencing, right? And could sound quite outlandish, perhaps, potentially, and alarming even. And I don't think for a second that he's being manipulated by Zeke. I think Pixis and Zachary, they're certainly underestimating Eren Yeager at this moment in time. But, in their defense as well, they still know Eren as that Eren, right? They don't know this new Eren. Not a lot of people do. So I think, unfortunately, they are underestimating him, and I don't think for a second that he's being manipulated by Zeke. Now don't get me wrong. I certainly think Zeke is a mastermind. That's for damn sure. That's undeniable, right? Zeke is just so fascinating, so impressive in how he functions, right? But I don't think for a second that he's manipulating Eren. I don't think he's able to manipulate Eren. I just don't think so. And of course, there's always that fascinating paths angle, isn't there? To all of this. And those really noticeable and out-of-character reactions in Liberio, right? To Reiner taking the Jaw Titan back, right? And you see Eren's really shocked reaction to that moment. And then, of course, his reaction to Connie telling Eren the last thing Sasha said before dying, right? His reaction to that, once again, quite noticeable, quite jarring, quite out of character in relation to his demeanor at that point in time, right? And in my episode 8 discussion, I did bring up that possibility, right? That much like his visions and, flashes of the future from episode 1, he might be experiencing that sort of thing again, right? And I brought up that parallel to Bran, the Three-Eyed Raven, right? And I originally brought that up in my Season 3, Episode 21 discussion, the Attack Titan, right? But of course, Armin and Mikasa certainly tried their best to get permission to go down to the jail cells, right? And speak with Eren, right? And see if they can get him to open up. But as the late Premier Zachary put it, the situation has become far too delicate at the moment. So he just, straight up tells him he's not going to allow it. He cannot allow it at this moment. And, Armin surmised that it's quite possible that they have closed the book on that Eren Yeager chapter at this moment, right? That they have moved on. And they are probably in the process of picking the next candidate for the Founding Titan. And I think he might have been on the right track. In his conclusion, they show us a scene of Zachary looking through applicants, perhaps, or applications, or top picks, or recommendations as the next candidate for the Founding Titan, right? You see him kind of scrolling through, or, kind of shuffling through a few papers, or a few documents, right? But of course, Premier Zachary does end up getting blown to bits, right? By his own creation. By his own creation. That this man is laughing his ass off about that, in some sort of afterlife. Let's talk about Armin and Mikasa's proximity to this deadly blast. Mikasa, she would have caught it. She would have caught it as well if Armin didn't initially grab her arm and stop her from, going closer to the door. Or, getting closer to the door so she can listen in. But then Mikasa had a bit of a spider sense type moment, didn't she? It looked like she reacted to the blast a split second before it actually happened. That's what it looked like. But maybe it wasn't that. But it certainly felt like she kind of picked up on it a split second before it happened. And of course, her first instinct was to protect Armin, right? She kind of jumps on him and, kind of tries to jump out of the range of the explosion. And, I thought that was so beautiful. Armin trying to protect her. And then, of course, Mikasa's first instinct as this blast happens is to, protect Armin. So, in that sense, I'm so happy that at least Armin and Mikasa have each other. But more so, that Mikasa has Armin. Because a bit later, you see how rattled Mikasa is about how things are playing out. You know, she's essentially in a state of shock. And it's a good thing that Armin is around. You know, he's here for her. And he tries to reassure her and calm her down, right? And, you know, he tells her that I'm sure Eren is going to understand once they talk to him. See, I doubt Armin believes that at this point, right? He might have some hope, some semblance of hope still, that he's not going to completely give up on Eren until he at least gets to talk to him, you know, once again. But he does say it to Mikasa to reassure her, right? So, yeah, I really do love that they do have each other at this moment in time. They certainly need each other at this moment in time. Because, you know, their longtime friend, their best friend is not someone they're able to understand as they used to. And, you know, once again, speaking of Yamamoto's incredible music and it playing a part and, you know, enabling a scene to become iconic, how about Eren's trek towards the Jaegerists, right? To me, that certainly felt like a monumental moment. I mean, it's an iconic moment for the story. It had me covered in goosebumps. It's that same incredible song choice from episode 3, right? As the commander and Lord Tiber meet and discuss things for the first time on that balcony. And then, of course, in episode 8, Falco and Gabi, as they zoom towards the aircraft, right? The blimp. Incredible music. It really is. You know, I keep saying it. I said it earlier in this discussion, but yeah, the soundtrack, you know, I mean, this might be a bit of a strange thing to say, but, you know, part of me really wants the season to wrap up as well, right? So I can get to the soundtrack, because I was told that it's not gonna come out till after the season wraps up. So I know it's a bit of a strange thing to say, but yeah, you know, that's one of the things I'm really looking towards. You know, to get that soundtrack the moment it drops. Now, going back to Eren, he essentially told Hanji that he could just leave anytime he wants, right? And even though he did hang back in the cell for a bit, right, he certainly stayed put. You know, he finally decided it was time to come out, right? This is the moment. You know, this was the moment. And before I go any further, I think, yeah, it's quite clear that he did end up using his Titan abilities, right, to get out. You see that he's got the markings on his face as well. So yeah, you know, as he told Hanji, you know, he ate the Warhammer Titan, right? So nothing can really hold him. So once he decided to leave, you know, nothing could stop him. And, you know, I think it's monumental because he's definitely embraced that role at this moment in time, right? At this point, he has embraced that role. To me, it had a distinct feeling that Eren cannot restore the balance of life by taking lesser actions at this point, right? And that the story is now progressively moving forward to a potential final action, right? Points of no return, essentially. And I think I mentioned this before, right? But once again, it's clear to see through Isayama-san's writing that he's fantastic at building conflict progressively, right? To complicate the story. He's just so good at that. And of course, Eren's first command, locate Zeke, you know, find out his location. And, you know, it should be noted that Hanji is one of the few who knows about Zeke's location, right? Alongside the 3 soldiers she mentioned. So a potential run-in with the Jaegerists is a possibility for Hanji and squad, right? Now, you know, one of the sad things about this episode was the state of the Scouts' reputation, right? I mean, it has regressed quite a bit, right? And really fast. You know, so much so that they actually appear to have that same level of distrust again, right? The type of distrust that was prevalent in season 1, season 2, and even at least half of season 3, part 1, right? You know, Commander Smith's legacy seems to be fading, and it is quite sad. It is quite sad. You see characters like Nile kind of, go back to their initial stance with the Scouts, right? Going back to that season 1 stance, even his, season 3 part 1 stance on the Scouts. So it is sad to see that, right? Once again, things come full circle, right? Or, the cycle repeats itself. But, again, that being said, there are reasons for this. Unfortunately, for the Scouts at least, the person leaking information or the people leaking information, they did come from the Scouts, Flock. And of course, these Scout recruits are the ones that brought the chair back to his office, right? So yeah, there's, that one shot as Armin confirms that they are Scout recruits. That one shot of Nile, wow, the expression on his face, and that's the moment that incredible track kicks in. Oh, just incredible, isn't it? And another really fascinating moment of the episode is the mob outside the military HQ, right? Their reaction to Zachary's assassination. I mean, wow. That one guy said, our anger reached them, right? Now's the time to fight. Their reaction wasn't one of shock and horror, was it? It was one of, yes, this is the fury of the people, right? Our anger has reached them. So, building on Luis, the Jaegerist, the extremist, essentially doing the salute in the last episode. Now, you have this crowd outside of HQ, right? And they are frustrated, right? And again, trust is a hard thing to come by at this point. I mean, the newspapers are reporting headlines like, Eren Yeager wrongfully detained, right? So that type of narrative is out there now. The people, again, that was the whole idea of the leaks, right? That was the whole concept behind these leaks. That, once they leak this information, that it is going to get citizens riled up, right? That they're one hope against the world that wants to crush them, right? That wants to eradicate them. They've wrongfully detained him. So you see the results of that, leaking the information. It was quite effective. And then, of course, there's the recontextualization of that iconic Shinzo Sasageo line, right? The chant. I mean, they certainly adopted it, didn't they? They didn't hesitate at all. And, now it's being used by nationalists, right? And extremists, but also people who do want to fight and push back against, the outside threat that, that would have them crushed, right? That is certainly understandable as well, right? Their frustrations, their fears, right? Their concerns about their safety, right? And the impending attack that might happen, right? So, it's a mix of all types of people, right? And speaking of the Jaegerists and Flock, who is essentially Eren's right-hand man at this moment, right? I mean, wow. You see them much like Yelena. Flock's devotion to Eren Yeager is absolute, right? Absolute. And I'm thinking that the line of dialogue was certainly important, right? The only one who can save the Aldean Empire is you, Eren Yeager. His devotion is to Eren and Eren Yeager only, right? There's no mention of Zeke. There's no thoughts of Zeke. And, I just mentioned that there's all kinds of people there outside of HQ, right? And you see that in the mixed collection of people that are standing behind Flock, right? You see farmers, and you can see in the clothing, right? The different clothing that these people have on. You see some of them have some suits on, some of them are younger, some of them are older, right? So it's a mixed bag. And, who's to tell them that they can't fight for the right to live, right? The right to defend themselves or their nation, right? There's a lot of different types of people in there, right? But then, here's the thing. It starts getting tricky the moment it becomes a nationalist cult, right? If it starts becoming that. I mean, you could even say it is that. The Jaegerists are essentially a cult, right? The cult of Jaeger, but now, they have an official name as Nile coined it. So let's see how their actions play out. The symbolism, the ideology, and how this nationalism and its potential suppression of critical thinking could come into play. But, that being said, for many, it's now beyond that point, right? Now it's time to act. Now is the time to fight, as they said outside of HQ, right? It's time to back this Messiah-type figure, right? Am I intrigued by this? Yes, of course I'm intrigued by this, cult-like group that's formed around this Messiah-like figure. Of course, it is intriguing. But, let's see. Let's see how it plays out in these next few episodes. Now, let's go to that opening scene, right? Annie is shown once again, right? So at this point in time, she's firmly reintroduced back into the narrative, right? And yeah, I mean, it's getting there now, right? It's the end game of the series. So this has been one of the long-standing mysteries, if you could call it that. One of the long-standing unanswered things of the story. The reemergence of Annie, potentially. Now, they've certainly brought it back into focus once again. And, beyond that, she could actually be making her full return to the story really soon as well, right? Given the fact that they've established that the Jaw Titan, or the special ability of the Jaw Titan is, its jaws and its claws, essentially. It can certainly damage the crystal enclosure. But again, there's that risk, right? How do you actually, crack that without not damaging or hurting or potentially killing the human inside, right? But they have established that, yes, there is a method to, open up that crystal enclosure or crack through that crystal enclosure. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that's the angle they're going to take here, but that is the only thing they've shown me so far, right? That there is a possibility to get through and, crack through that crystal enclosure. So yeah, the possibility is there. It is there that, she could be rejoining the story really soon in her full capacity, right? Now, actually, before I go any further, Hitch. It was so nice to actually see Hitch again. Her voice acting, or the actress doing the voice acting for Hitch, it's such a I don't know how to explain it. I mean, it's really attractive. It's really soothing to hear her speak. And I love her new look. It's a great new look. She looks really good, really pretty. That's for sure. Now, it appears that Hitch might be the official custodian for Crystal Annie, right? The Sleeping Beauty, essentially. Maybe as a friend of hers, she asked to look after the crystal enclosure, and she got permission to do so, right? And keep track of who comes and goes, right? Though it appears that she is the one who has the authority as a potential custodian, right? And I love the notion that Hitch clearly comes down here often, right? That's clear because she tells Armin that she had no intentions of banning him, because then, Annie might get bored if it's just her talking to her all the time, There's something quite endearing about that. Just thinking about all the things Hitch might have told Annie or shared with Annie and confided in her, right? I could totally picture Hitch coming down to Annie after finding out about Marlowe, right? In that season 3 finale, as Flock told her, right? He straight up just told her how things ended for Marlowe. And I felt like even the ambience of that room has a soothing aspect to it, in my opinion at least. There's that fire, that crackling noise of the fire, and it's just Annie in a crystal enclosure, right? I do find something soothing about that setup. Now, Armin goes to touch the crystal, and after Hitch jumps in, right, he tells her that memories have been known to transfer by touch, right? Now, it's certainly interesting that Armin knows about this and wants to try it out. This is the second time he's come down here to see Annie. I mean, at least on screen, right? It might have been, it easily could have been much more than that, but it's the second time on screen, right? It's the second time the audience gets to see this. So the concept of memories being accessed, unlocked, released, passed on, right? All of that has been around for some time now. It's been established in this story, right? And of course, Armin himself has Bertolt's memories, right? Or at least some of them, right? Again, that's part of taking on as a Titan Shifter from the last Titan Shifter, right? That's one of the long-running things about this concept of Titan Shifters and, you know, having access, or not access, that's something else entirely. I'll get into that, but having some of those memories kind of become part of your own memories, right? I feel like it's probably quite subtle, right, in how it affects your own thoughts or how you are able to experience those memories. And as I brought up in my discussion in episode 9, or for episode 9, yeah, he knows, right? He must know that Bertolt had feelings for Annie. Going back to the nature of these memories and how subtle they might be, right? Surely these memories can't have that much of a hold or effect on the successor to a Titan Shifter, right? Or that level of influence over the one or the person it gets passed down to. Because then I feel like you start going into some really strange territory in terms of feelings and thoughts, right? And the influence of the past Titan Shifter holders, right? Or the influence of their memories. I would like to think it's probably a bit more subtle than that. Well, you know, again, that being said, you know, Eren Yeager, you know, his situation is a bit of a unique one for sure. You know, they've shown us the moments or memories he experiences can be so transportive that he actually becomes that person, right? In reliving a certain memory, right? As shown through Frida, Kruger, and Grisha's memories, right? So like I've said a billion times at this point, you know, he essentially kind of gets transported in a moment in time, right? It's a really unique situation for him because that's Eren Yeager, right? That's the holder of the founding Titan, right? So that's different, you know. I doubt that these other Titan Shifters have that sort of experience, right, with it. At most, I think they remember some things from the last holder of the Titan, right, of their Titan. As shown earlier in the season, Galliard tells Reiner that he saw things through the past holder, the late great Ymir, right? But like I mentioned in episode 9, clearly Armin has come to understand Annie even more through Bertolt's memories. That's for sure, right? Much like Galliard, you know, saw a lot of things through Ymir's memories and saw the things Reiner was getting up to, right? And, you know, that is on top of already having a pretty decent understanding of Annie a long time ago, right? In the 104th days. You know, Armin was one of the few who was able to understand Annie, right? And a few times Annie was quite surprised to hear Armin's outlook on her. And essentially they do confirm that Armin does have feelings for Annie at this point in time, for sure, right? I mean, a crush, as Hitch put it. You know, I mean, sure, maybe part of that could be a bit of Bertolt as well, right? There could be something subtle, right, that is playing a part here. But, you know, like I said, both Annie and Armin had this respect, right? This mutual respect for each other. They understood each other, right? And they surprised each other with the praise for each other, right? So, you know, they had that respect even back then. So I think Armin kind of did like Annie as a person back then. But, you know, at this point in time, it's kind of turned into something a bit more than that, right? It's kind of built on top of that now. That mutual respect they had all that time ago. Maybe now it's, you know, something else, or it's turned into something a bit more substantial. The feelings, that is. Now, here's the thing, right? This is quite a high tension moment or period of time. So, you know, Armin choosing to be down here and potentially, you know, trying out this touch method, right? Because it's known to pass memories, right? There's got to be something to that, right? The fact that he thinks this is important enough to try at this moment in time, right? There's something about potentially connecting with Annie or, you know, gaining some of these memories that could play a part maybe You know, it's certainly important enough for him to try at such a time, right? So, you know, that's certainly something interesting to keep an eye out on. But now beyond Annie, Armin also has a much greater understanding of Reiner as well, right? Especially given the fact that Reiner and Bertolt, they were essentially inseparable in the 104th days, right? So any potential Reiner and Armin scene, right, that becomes quite exciting, right? That becomes quite an exciting prospect as well. And given the fact that Peak is here now, you know, Reiner might be around as well, or he might be just around the corner. So sooner or later, you know, they are going to run into each other, right? They are going to run into each other. And the really interesting thing is that it's not quite as clear cut anymore, is it? You know, that divide, because things have escalated quite a bit on Paradis, right? There's all kinds of infighting, right? Internal conflict, civil unrest, right? There's a revolution, an uprising at the moment as well. So it's quite chaotic right now. You know, essentially, it's the perfect timing for them to infiltrate. So I think their reaction to this situation will be quite interesting, right? And how they proceed with the surprise attack. I mean, you know, upon arrival and seeing things in this state, surely some plans have to be reassessed, right? And changed. And maybe a different approach might be taken given how chaotic everything is at the moment. But circling back to that potential Armin and Reiner angle, one of the things that the anime didn't quite adequately explore, in my opinion at least, is Reiner's feelings on the loss of Bertolt. This is essentially someone who was like a brother to him, right? So I do think a potential Armin and Reiner meeting could be quite interesting, given the fact that Armin has taken over for Bertolt. I mean, that's putting it lightly. You know, he consumed Bertolt, and now, you know, Bertolt is kind of part of him, right? And he does have some of Bertolt's memories, and in that sense, like I mentioned earlier, he has quite a bit of understanding for Reiner. Because, you know, that scene of Armin talking to Annie in episode 9 essentially mimicked some of the things from the basement scene, right? In episode 5, Reiner and Reiner and Eren, right? Eren had an understanding. He completely understood their angle. You know, Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie. And Armin also understands that, right? And he tells Annie as much. You know, so I do hope there is a chance, there is an opening for some sort of Reiner and Armin scene, right? That they really do get to talk to each other at some point. I hope so. I really hope so. So I did check out the message Sefison sent me, and yeah, you know, it turns out that, you know, that quick frame of Yelena and Eren meeting up, that was actually a mistake, right? So it turns out that he didn't actually have that hairstyle yet, right? Or that look yet. So that appears to be a mistake. Right then, there it is, episode 12. So if you enjoyed that, please consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. Consider subscribing to the channel if you do enjoy the content. And if you're interested in full length for this episode, or perhaps early access to the next episode, once again, that's only an option for anyone who's interested in content beyond the scheduled content. So if you are interested, check out the link in the pinned comment, or check out the link in the description, and check out the different listings on the Patreon page, and perhaps even check out the plans for the channel for the rest of 2021 and beyond. So thank you once again for joining me. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again for the next one. So until then, take it easy.